We are the one, the light in the dark. One heart, one world, one spark. We are the one, together we rise. One dream, one voice, one sky.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Empowered Across the World. This is our podcast, and I have amazing host with me always. And we have actually somebody that's joined us to stay with us through this episode. And we're going to have her just introduce herself really quickly, too. So, Megan from South Africa. And we have Joanne, who is in the UK. And we have Jackie Zaccoli, who is global with me and resides in Arizona. And then we have Alina from Poland, and she is global and mostly in Africa. And then we have a guest, and myself, I'm Carol Witt, and I'm the founder and director of YEA Global. And I am global, 76 countries now. And we have a guest, Elle, and we are so excited to hear her story. And we're ready to be inspired by you, Elle. So come join us.
Okay, it is my pleasure. I'm happy. I'm always happy to be around inspirational people. Those are the people that when you, because sometimes what's inspirational about us gets a little tucked in a corner or a box, like it's seasonal or something. Like, don't bring it out until this situation. When you're around people like this, you remember that it's always the time to be inspirational, right? In any way, shape, or form. So happy to be here. Have known Jackie for a while. We've played in a lot of different playgrounds together. And that's what brought me here today to be with all of you glorious people. So, the purpose here, I believe, is to be inspirational because we tend to believe that we suffer in silence, especially women a lot. And so by sharing my story, I hope that somebody's listening today and say, and saying, I can do this, or saying, oh, there is hope, or saying, I can tell my story, or whatever that might look like. And because people look at us from the outside and make a lot of assumptions, we walk around with a lot of bells and whistles, and and then once we get behind closed doors, we do a variety of things, everything from walk around naked to put on that old t-shirt and those bunny slippers, but we don't do that in public. So that's what I feel like this podcast is about, talking about the bunny slippers and the beat up t-shirt. And so getting really comfortable. And so, with that in mind, I grew up in the 60s in a trailer park. So, we were impoverished, and there was pretty much all of the abuses, right? Mental, physical, emotional, financial, sexual, psychological. And we were unaware that anything was wrong
Mm.
because that's how it was for everybody, right? So, lying, cheating, stealing is just what you did. And you also talked about it and even bragged about it because that was a survival mode and it was mirrored by everybody, adults, other people in the park and all of that type of thing. And so when we got, then you start going to school and you start getting seeing some other, mirrors out there going, oh, life can look like that. Oh, I didn't know that, right? And then that's when at a very young age, I dove into reading because a bookmobile would come out to the trailer park and I would just read because when I would read, I didn't have to be in the trailer park. Reading took me so many places. And I just read and read and read and read. And that helped increase my vocabulary. It helped increase my intelligence. It taught me things way beyond basic public education. And I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying it gave me so much more. And so because of that, I was able to dream
Oh,
that there is more, that there could be more, that that I could leave because nobody left. None of my family went to college. There was nothing, like I said, modeled for me outside of the trailer park life. And so somehow I managed to go to college. Now, back in the day in the United States, they had something called Pell Grants that don't exist anymore. So I, as an impoverished Latina female, could get the money to go to college. Now, not a fancy college, mind you, but um, and not be then strapped with the payments that people suffer from today, right? So I managed to get away, and I went about 400 or 500 miles away, not too far away because that was all I knew, right? But far enough away to where I could recreate myself.
Oh,
And when I got to college, before I got there, and I'm thinking, who am I? How do I want to show up? These people know nothing about me. They don't know anything about me, right? So I made up a nickname for myself and where I lived and what my family looked like. So, like a book, I created this story that I now lived. And nobody knew any different because I knew I was never inviting anybody over to my house. So nobody was ever going to see the reality. And I knew that my parents weren't necessarily going to visit me. It was too expensive. My father was mostly MIA anyway. So that was the beginning of recreating myself. Now, the downside is I was creating it on a lie, a fallacy, a fantasy. So at some point in time, that did have to come crumbling down, right? So that I could emerge. So I just needed that transition period, from caterpillar to butterfly or whatever. And so once that happened and I became faced with who I am actually now, and a lot of it had to do with meeting who became my husband. So being authentic with all of that. And, being the first in the family to graduate from college, some of these huge milestones that then made me realize if I can do this, I can do this. If I can do this, I can do this. So then in my early 20s, I found something back in the day. So I'm dating myself. It was called Nightingale Conant, and we got these cassette series in the mail once a month, and you could send them back or you could keep them or whatever. So this was Nightingale Conant, this was Les Brown, this was Tony Robbins came on, I think, the scene a little later, Zig Ziglar, and I just this stuff just I devoured it. It was what I never had my entire life, but my soul knew I always wanted,
oh,
that I always needed. And I just devoured this stuff. And one day I'm sitting at my dining room table and it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. And, it was the voice of God or Gaia or spirit or soul or universe or all of them because it was such a revolution, a revelation, both. And I realized I'm in control. It's not that I'm female. It's not that I'm Latina. It's not that I was impoverished. It's not that I was born in poverty. I make all my decisions. It's not the government. It's not anything but me. Every thought, every breath, every action is about me, from me, for me, to me. There's some kind of saying like life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, right? And I all of a sudden I just started feeling a sense of flow and calm and peace. And not that I was anxious before or anything. I'm a pretty mellow person by nature, but it was like every cell in my body said, "Oh, we can relax." It's like she's home now. We've always been here. My soul has always been in the temple. And I finally came home rather than trying to chase it, creating all of these external things, right? So that was the beginning of the rest of my life, pretty much. And it helped me be able to. I spoke for the Boy Scouts of America for a long time on confidence and self-esteem in high schools. And it just helped me to connect with the kids that weren't from any type of affluence right? And that type of thing. I taught at a modeling school to be able to help girls raise their self-esteem just through their posture alone, the tone of their voice, their eye contact, nothing about the trappings again of wealth, that type of stuff. And then I fell into being a fitness instructor, which I never knew was going to happen back in the headbands and leg warmer days. And that became my career as a professional fitness instructor and a CEC provider. And I wrote for the magazines and all that kind of stuff. Got married, had the kids, had the life. Yet underneath, there was still that yearning. There's more, there's more. And I wasn't sad. There was a yearning. I'm going to use that word. And one day I was sitting in a coffee shop library, having my coffee again, reading a book. Oh, and I of course became a writer. I've written 3 books. That had to happen after the bookmobile and all those hours of reading. And I'm reading a book, and it sounded like somebody behind me leaned over and said, "You're a prophet." I said, "What?" And it didn't happen again, but it was loud enough. I knew it said, "You're a prophet." And I'm in my 20s and I'm thinking, there's no way I'm a prophet. I would like to make a profit. That would be nice. But that's too grand, right? That's too grand. That's too much. That's like that story about God asked man for the bigger fish, and because and it was the size of his frying pan, right? It wasn't about the fish. It was about the tool, hit himself. And it was like that. So that moment started me really focusing on, what does self-help look like? What does motivation look like? And that's why it tied into fitness. So these ladies would show up every day, and I would compliment them and I would encourage them. Show up if you're grumpy, show up if you're, hungover, show up if you're whatever. And I would tell them, I will be here every day for you, except those days when I'm not. And so they would know that they could count on me, right? Because, I'm a human, I get sick, I miss class once in a blue moon. So I feel blessed that that was the upward spiral of my life. I didn't see it as a girl. I never dreamed of the house with the fence, the white dress wedding. Because I never saw it, I read it in the books or I saw it in magazines, but I didn't feel it. And I didn't have that. I had wonderful things. I had a wonderful wedding. We had a wonderful home. I had those things, but they weren't what drove me. What drove me was, how is it that I'm speaking to you all, yet there are words going on in here that no one hears?
Mhm.
Sometimes they're encouraging, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're joking, sometimes they're sarcastic, sometimes they're cruel. Growing up in the trailer park, I learned how to be cruel.
Mhm.
And so that's when I I was in the Chamber of Commerce, and I met a woman who founded the International Academy of Self-Knowledge. And I was very drawn to her. I said, I like what you do. And what the program is all about is intrapersonal communication. So we have interpersonal communication that goes on at work and school and all that kind of stuff. Intrapersonal communication is what goes on in here between your ego, your soul, yourself, your conscious, your non-conscious. People have a lot of voices in their head. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with talking to them. Actually, you should, or it would be ideal. Um, there's nothing wrong with you talking out loud, speaking to them, because it's your journey, however you get there. And so then that got me spun off into neuroscience. Why does the brain do this? Where is this housed? Where does this voice live? I learned about executive function, right? And attention deficit disorder and ADD, ADHD, because all of that's in here.
Mhm.
Everything we do, like tapping our pen or our foot or interrupting, that all starts in here. And so there's nurture and then there's nature. So our brains are wired a certain way from birth. Some of it's genetic, and then there's nurture. That's how all those little squigglies in the brain start going off in their own little tangents. So by understanding nurture, going back to when those things were created. So for me, the fear, the doubt, the worry, the hiding in the closet, the getting my brother and sister safe from my dad's, violent outbreaks, the the developing the keen sense of which dad is coming home, by how long he sat in the truck before he came in, by how slow the steps were coming up the front door, by how long it took him to actually get the key in the front door and open the door, by his breath, his aspiration, his all of that. I now know I thought it was a superpower that I had, that I could read the room so easily, but it was a survival technique that I learned in very young formative years. So that's all goes back to neuroscience. So you find the things that serve you, you embrace them, you thank them, and then you learn how to release the ones that aren't. Right. And so when I work with people and when we do the transformational meditation, and we'll bring out the part that says, here we go again. This is where you always screw up. Well, we'll find out that it's a little girl who got admonished by somebody she really admired when she was 7 for, tying her shoes wrong or putting them on the wrong feet, something like that, that was really devastating. And so I'll say, well, ask that voice what year it is. Oh, it's 1972. Oh, okay. Well, were you aware you had a part of you still running amok in there from 72, still trying to run the show, making you play small, keeping you quiet? And it's like, no, and so that's how we begin to release. And I've been doing this almost 30 years. And sometimes I go, really? Am I not done yet? There are still parts running amok in there, but it's not until it's their time, and so in leading that thing to you've become a prophet, I understand that. I wrote 3 books, right? I speak, I taught fitness classes. Like, I'm always putting out the word of health, happiness. Happy and healthy go hand in hand. And I spoke on happy, healthy, and obese. Yes, the answer is yes, because it's all about the blood work and the numbers and all of that. It's not about the scale or your age, those types of things. So once I put a flag in something, I stand there proudly and I let it wave, and I encourage others to join me. And then all of that just continues to be, part of the mix. Like I was making banana nut muffins a while ago, and I'm thinking, these need cinnamon. Well, I've made them lots of times, but never with cinnamon. And that's how my life is also. It's like, it's time for what? It's time for different nuts. Let me find some different nuts, Let me find some other spicy things. Let me go bland for a minute so I can appreciate it. All of that. So here's the thing that I like to share with people is we're all prophets. We're all here to inspire. We all have a message. We're all here to be beacons of light, to hold people's hands in the darkness and cheer them on in the light. And the way that we begin doing that for ourselves is to ask yourself what you want. Be as grand as you like, because it's coming from your heart, which has its own intelligence, except your ego doesn't live here. So your heart's going to be spot on. And you ask, what do I want? How can I get there? And who can help me? Those 3 foundational questions you can always go back to when you forget, why am I doing this? And you're like, oh, yeah, that has nothing to do with what I said I wanted. I'm doing this because my mom said everybody needs to be a doctor. Like, I know my mom used to always say, you need a government job so you'll be taken care of with health benefits and all that kind of stuff, right? And I got fired from every job that I had to punch a time card for. So I knew I had to be self-employed or handwrite my own time in. So what do you want? And then the neuroscience on what do you want is, some people are bottom up. So today, what does this look like for me to get there? And, you make the steps. That's how can I get there? And then who can help me? And some people need to be top down. So they need to see, like, say you're planning a trip to Hawaii. You got to start seeing yourself in Hawaii at the beach. What are you going to do when you're there? And then, well, what happened before that? And what happened before that? And to today, that looks like, well, let's just see what flights cost and start going. So you could do it. I'm a top-down person because I like to use the power of imagination to make things real, to make for me they're tangible. That's because I read books all those years. It makes sense. So I like to create. And then the steps, sometimes we get stuck in the steps, procrastination, or excuse me, perfection is just procrastination in a tuxedo because procrastinators can just stay stuck in the moment. Perfectionists can say like, I'm here, but it's not good enough. Right. So either one keeps us from moving forward. We get stuck. And then the best part, it's the icing on the cake, even though I feel like it's the foundation. Who can help me? Because when you help people, when I help people, when we are being of service, it feels good. We get those endorphins and all those other little feel good chemicals that kick in. So when you don't ask for help, and I might be talking to you, you're robbing people from feeling good.
Oh, I love that.
You're keeping them from being able to shine, to help, to be of service, to tell other people I did that, or even just to sit in their house in their bunny slippers at the end of the day and said, today was a good day. I was helpful. Right. And then there's a whole nother section on people pleasing, which is not being helpful. So please ask for the help.
Mm,
Take a moment and breathe. Who's the right person to ask?
mm,
Right. So, and open yourself up to talking to people who you trust and who love you. Right. So that's a good place to start because everybody struggles. Everybody has pain, heartache, disappointment. And just because the house is gorgeous, the car is great, the highlights in the hair and the nails are always on point, you have no idea behind the door
yeah.
what it looks like. And so, helping, if they can help you, sometimes that can also give them hope. Well,
Mm,
if she can do it, I can do it. And like writing books, because I help people write books also and they see, that I've written three, one self-published, one with an agent, one not, like I've done the gamut of it. And what they understand is every story is different. Every book is different. Every end reader is different. So find your message, find your voice, get it out there. And because when I was born and how I was raised, women were taught to be quiet, to be subservient, to not ask too many questions, never challenge authority. And so now I'm none of that. Now I'm none of that. And guess what? In the process, I didn't get hurt. I got more hurt being that woman,
yeah.
mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, than I am now in this. And I'm not brash or rude or insensitive. I'm still caring and thoughtful. And I take a minute and I breathe and I listen and I observe and then I respond.
So beautiful.
Then I respond. And I tell people I like to think about it for a minute.
Mhm.
Because the ego's the first one to jump out there and answer the question very often before the person's done talking. So I want the heart the chance to say it's bit.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
love what I do. Love what I
Thank
do.
you, Elle. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for joining us. What an amazing story. What an amazing story that you shared with us today. I'm sure
Mhm.
every one of us in here are taking away something from it. So powerful, so, so powerful. What I love
Mhm.
is that it was your life that gave you your life.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
was your life that gave you your life. And same thing for me. I come from an abusive background, and it was my life that gave me my life. So thank you. All right. So guys, questions. Okay, Jackie, go ahead. You are muted. There you go.
Elle, it was so delightful to really hear your past because I have never heard that.
Thank
And
you. That's
it's
true.
so beautiful for you to have learned as well and to express it as well as you did about all that learning that you did. That is so delightful. So I'm going to ask the obvious questions. Who are the best people that you work with and those not only that's your target audience, but also those that work
Mm.
to help you as alliances? Who might those people be if you can put some kind of a niche there?
So the best client wise, the foundation is you have to believe you're connected, part of something bigger than you, that you don't just live and die and then everything ends with you. It doesn't matter what that spirituality looks like. It just has to be something you know, right? So people will either pray or, have a certain meditation or a place they go, but they know that I need these answers and it's outside of me, right? Like
Mhm.
having worked with alcoholics, there's, we had to let go that it was us and look for a bigger purpose. So that's those, that's the client kind of ground base. And I have just, I'm so happy to be here right now because it took a lot of courage that I let go of everything else I was doing. And now I'm just doing this. I'm just helping people with becoming the mental hygiene mentor, helping people with the voices in their heads, getting them lined up. And that took courage. It means I had to let go of my websites from the old businesses.
Mm.
I had to stop, showing up in those networking groups because it wasn't serving me. It wasn't bringing me joy. And so now I'm mostly focusing on mental health professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, anybody in the mental wellness space. And you have that client that keeps hitting the wall, hitting the wall, hitting the wall, and you just can't get them over the hurdle. So refer them to me and I can get them over the hurdle because we can go back into where it originated, pull it out by the root, plant something fresher, newer, more exciting there. So those are my biggest, besides, of course, regular referrals, right? Because people will see people change and say, I want that. And so that's a blessing in its own. So that's why I've shifted to just being focusing on who helps people with their mental health.
Okay.
And so even personal trainers, they have anybody who has those, you work with people and there's that point where they just are stuck. Or who do you know who you just can't hear that story one more time?
It doesn't serve them any longer, but they don't know
It's
it.
a
That's right.
label. I've labeled and lived it. That's all I know is to label and live it.
Exactly. So those are the people you could say, you know what, trust me, I know someone who can help you with that.
Change
Help you
labels.
shift that. And then you even have to go tough love one step more, right? And say, because you need it,
Mhm.
Mm,
not just she can help you, but the little bit of the push saying, I don't want to see you suffer like this anymore.
yeah.
You need that extra
Yeah.
step.
So
Uh,
many times we settle for suffering because we don't know any better.
Mhm.
yes.
Now we know who to send to.
Yes. Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. That's that story, the how they train, I started to say dinosaurs, elephants, with how they're attached by the tether and the stake when they're little and they can't pull free. So even when they're massive, they don't know that, and people live their lives that way too, attached to
Mhm.
something that they don't know they're they're way beyond being able to break free of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really, really amazing. Okay, Megan, you have your hand up. Go ahead. And then we have to kind of end this. So go ahead, Megan.
Awesome. Thank you, Els. Thank you so much. Your story truly is an inspiration. And
Oh.
I'm so glad. I mean, you had me at the reading books. That was it. But I just love all the wisdom that you shared throughout. And I absolutely feel all the undertones about the story that you were sharing. So thank you for just putting that out there. And then not so much a question, but at some point during your story, you were looking for the nuts, and I'm afraid you might have found them right here and now. So that's what I'm going to leave you with, because yeah, we loved your session, but thank you so much for just sharing with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jackie, thank you for introducing us to Elle. I honestly believe she is somebody that will inspire so many people to start questioning and looking in their lives. What's not working? What keeps showing up over and over and over? Mindset is the biggest deal.
Mhm.
And it is what I teach. And I just so love how you arrived at all of it. Wow. All right, so guys, if you love this, if you love these sessions, you love these episodes, please subscribe to our channel. We do these Mondays, one on Monday and two on Friday, and then we upload them into YouTube. And we ask that you subscribe to our channel, that you go out and you share them, because Elle's sphere of influence is not mine, and mine is not hers. So we can get into a big, way bigger sphere of influence for more people to hear who Elle is out there. That's what this platform's all about, is that we have women come and share so we can expose them to way more people knowing what they do and how they do it and why they are doing this and being inspired. So we thank you once again for another amazing episode. And guys, we all deserve to thrive. Let's do it together. Bye, everyone.